Good evening, everyone. My name is Milsa Orama, and I'm the chair of the Housing Committee. I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. With me is my right hand, Angel Lee, District Manager, and our committee. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to read a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. If you raise your hand, Zoom, click the participants icon and you will find the raise hand function there. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. The chat should not be used to discuss or pose questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. With that, we are going to go to roll call.
Committee members, when I call your name, please answer present. Marie Charles. David Giordano.
Present.
James Gray.
Present.
Stina Johnson.
Present.
James Kemp.
Present.
Elsa Orama.
Present.
Beverly Pavone. Don Sanders.
Present.
Loretta So.
Present.
Kathy Basket. Yeah.
Thank you so much. With that, we're gonna move to the adoption of the agenda. Everyone has an agenda in front of them. Is there any additions to the agenda? If not, then we will move forward and adopt the agenda. The adoption of the minutes, not sure if they're posted on the website. I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to review the minutes. Has everyone reviewed the minutes?
No.
No, okay. So with that, then we'll put off the adoption of the minutes to the next meeting. And with that, we're gonna do announcements and informational updates. Would you like me to read it, Angel?
Sure.
Oh, okay. The Mayor Manzani's administration has released its housing plan block by block. The housing plan for New Era, our district manager sent it to everyone. This document and the Fair Housing Plan will guide the administration's housing preservation and development efforts in the coming years. Is there any other announcements? That's
Just want the members
okay. Oh, yes, our district manager just informed me, Angel, that 3 members of our committee have not been, did not reapply or were not reappointed, so they will no longer be with us. We thank them for their service. It's Valerie Ponte, John Green, and Jessica Morris. Thank you for your service. We're gonna move on to presentation and discussions. Before we do that, Angel, we have Ginger here. Would they like to do an update? Okay, so you're recognized.
It's an update, but I also wanted to talk to you about the letter.
Okay, great.
I don't know if Adama told you that, the letter about our tax, the damp tax abatement for 2029, we had briefly referenced it.
Okay.
Update is things have greatly improved. We're so grateful.
Okay.
And I was stopped by a shareholder on Saturday night, actually Sunday morning, who said she was almost in tears and said it was the first time she'd had an enjoyable Saturday night in her home in years.
Oh, that's
Wow, so it was nice. So things have come down to a much more just human people having a good time level and not nightclub level. So amazing, thank you.
Now, what you're going to talk about now, does that have anything to do with the support for legislative functions, the ones that are listed here? No, okay, so it's totally different.
Yeah. Sorry about that, I
No,
Why
you
did
don't
you
have to be
make
sorry.
sense?
I'm just trying to get back into what this.
this we were coming to ask you, and it's not urgent, it's not immediate, but for a letter of support, and I wrote out a brief template of what our ask would be. Excuse the crazy formatting, I just could not get it, and I was in a hurry from work, but it's late. So in brief, I'm with the building on Madison Avenue, 1779, 77, 75. And we are an HDFC. I assume you probably all know the backstory of HDFCs.
But you can give it to us.
So we were in 1997, turned over by a derelict landlord to the Tenants Association. I wasn't there at that time, but came in a few years later. So we have 52 apartments. It's a mix of original, long-standing New Yorkers. We have kind of a second wave of a kind of creative class. We have kids who've inherited from their parents. It's a really nice, diverse community. We keep the building alive. And like there's 70 roughly, approximately, HDFCs in this community board. And over 1,000 citywide. So we, like almost every other HDFC, got a tax damp abatement nearly 30 years ago. And what the state said, to help you people survive as you take over ownership of these derelict buildings, we're gonna dampen your tax burden. Not that you don't have to pay taxes, we're just giving you a tax break. Slightly more than they would give market rate co-ops and condominiums, who still get a tax break for maintaining things as their primary residence. So we currently pay over $100,000 a year in taxes. And we always have paid our taxes. Never got a tax exemption at all. But the dampening of it, the lessening of it is going to expire in 2029, it sunsets. If that happens, our taxes in that year will jump by $80,000. So in our building right now, we have a lot of seniors who are on a fixed income. We have been able to survive with 2% increases. We would have to, for the next 3 years, to absorb this, we would have to jump to 12% increases. But we can't wait to figure out what HPD is going to do or how this is going to be handled. What's happening is, this is an old plan under Bill de Blasio that has resurfaced. The city is basically saying, HPD is basically saying, they've had no direct communication with most, they've done no real outreach to HDFCs. I know, but we know from last time and through what we've heard, basically what they're saying to HDFCs now is, if you want a continued tax break, you need to sign over basically the running of your buildings to a third party monitor. They pick the monitor. We don't know who it is. We don't have any say in who it will be. They're going to pick the monitor. We have to pay the monitor. We don't know the fee structure. We don't know how long, we don't know anything about it. The monitor has to have oversight on all of our decisions, and the monitor can fine us untold amounts. So we have to pay an outsider to second guess our decisions, delay our decisions in all likelihood, and if they don't like our decisions, they can fine us. And we have no recourse to challenge them. Right, so there's no pathway for us to even say, we don't like this. So we object to this for many reasons, and we can go into those later in detail. But our main point is, this is not a meaningful attempt to help HDFCs survive. I know that HPD has said certain things that are just untrue, or they have no data to support it. They're trying to do a one-size-fits-all fix, basically, for what is a complex problem. They don't want, some HDFCs have succeeded and they are operating at levels HPD thinks is too expensive, although quite frankly, most of them are below the city's selling of affordable housing. And then there are some that they say are failing, so they have to grab them all to save the ones who are failing and to restrain the ones that are too successful. There's no pathway for those like mine, which are moderate but surviving and following the letter and the intent of the program. The biggest concerns that we have, aside from the finances, which would fall on on the people who live there, we are permanently affordable housing. It's in our deed. We cannot change that, right? We don't want to, but we have to still have income requirements, We still have to follow all of these restrictions. There's no change for that. We're never gonna be market rate. Meanwhile, market rate co-ops and condominiums can self-affirm that people there live in their primary residence and they get a 17 to 28% tax rate. No questions asked. But no offer in this plan of like, you do a 1-year financial stress audit. And if you're in good shape, you don't need a monitor. No offer of like, you can self-certify. Because we trust the market rate people to do it, but we don't trust the HDFC people to do it. It's just a really bad idea, very poorly executed, and we're not getting any information. But as a business that has to survive, because 52 homes are in there, we can't sit around and wait for them to tell us what their plan is, because I don't think they're gonna tell us.
When?
That's not my best letter, I can do better.
No, it's okay, it's a start. Hi, Beverly.
Hi.
Our vice chair joined us. When is HPD looking to, when is the sunset of the tax abatement is when, 2029?
2029,
2029.
yeah, and it's on the state level, 'cause it was a state abatement. There is a piece of legislation that Jackson and Tyler
Okay.
have put forward. But my understanding, though, I'm quoting what I've heard from other people who are worried about this and trying to get involved, I don't have firsthand knowledge of all of this, but I've been told that that's kind of getting killed in committee up in Albany, because there's a big push to basically pass a city council resolution here that would basically empower HPD to basically give you the carrot and the stick, sign the agreement, or you get no tax abatement. So there's a push to kill any like overarching legislation that would make the tax abatement permanent, so that it can be handled on the local level. So I'm told.
Do we have any questions? Wow.
I was
It
trying to.
was a lot, no,
I was
it's a
trying
lot to
breathe.
take in, and since we had a cancellation, you can have more time, but I don't wanna monopolize all the questions, so.
You mentioned fines, what would they be fining us for?
We don't have any information, but when we have had no plan, no talk from HPD, but presumably, there are certain rules that we're supposed to follow, which we do. It's gotta be your primary residence. No long-term subleasing. No Airbnb. Income tax for buyers, should we follow? I think those are the basic things, right? And we don't have any argument with any we follow those. But sale prices. They want to bring down sale prices and cap those. They want approval of all of our buyers. I will say, philosophically, I'm very much opposed to them coming in and telling a building that's run for 30 years under local blood, sweat, and tears how to do their business. But on top of that, our building is a rarity in that we qualify for mortgages, which many HDFCs do not. We fought really hard to get that approval back from banks. We had to go through stress testing forever after the economic crash of 2010. We got Chase of all banks to approve us for mortgages. Our buy-in prices are low. They're lower than the city's affordable buy-in prices. Our last 2-bedroom on the 4th story walk-up sold for $275,000, which is the biggest sale our building has ever had. And the young lady who bought it, lovely young lady, bought it in cash. And when you bring in a third party and a bank now knows you have more paperwork, more restriction, they don't want to take a risk on you. And then the only people who can buy in our building have cash. And we want mortgages because that's the only way working class people can get in. That's how I got it.
That's a lot to take in right now. I was, as she was talking, I was trying to look up the abatement and HDFC's part in all of this. It's a lot.
There is a website. I'm not part of it, but it's the HDFC Coalition, I think it's .com. So when Bill de Blasio essentially tried this same thing around 2013, 2014, everybody organized. April Tyler from Community Board 10 was a big part of that. And so that group is still here. They've created a website. And so they've got a lot of good information. And they've been the ones trying to push the legislation in Albany.
Okay, so my question is that, have you reached out to any of the electeds that would be pushed this through, such as the assemblymen, congressmen, council people? Have you spoken to them, and what is their answer to this?
The coalition has, directly, and they've been working with Jackson and Tyler, on the assembly level to do this. They've gotten them to sponsor this state legislation. On the city council level, nobody wants to talk about this because HPD is not clear with the stakeholders about what they're doing. They got kind of shellacked in the press last time for a takeover of basically working class owned buildings. So they backed off it then, thinking, well, we'll just come back in 2029 when the deadline's there, right? When your back's really against the wall. So they're hiding what they're doing. Or let me not do too difficult. They're not offering visibility or transparency into what their plans are. I reached out to Yusef Salam's office personally, because we're like right over the line now. We used to have Ayala, but they didn't respond to me.
So I have a suggestion. I'm newly employed by Assemblymember Eddie Gibbs. Why don't you stop in the office tomorrow or sometime this week, and maybe we can figure out something that we can help you.
Great, okay. What was your name again? I'm sorry,
I didn't say. Christina Johnson.
Christina Johnson.
Yes.
Could I email you? I have to work all week accordingly, but
Yeah,
I could
that's
set
fine.
up the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would also give me time to speak with him because he's been in Albany on working on the budget. But his chief of staff, I'm sure, can help out with this.
Great. Okay. I'm sure I can find your email somewhere on the website.
Yeah, it's JOHNSOC at NewYorkAssembly.gov.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? So.
Chair,
Say question.
is it time yet or you want me to wait?
Hi, Dawn. I don't have a computer in front of me. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay.
Feel free to speak.
Okay, thank you so much. So I've been listening in and hopefully you can hear me. So this sounds, I used to work at HPD a long time ago, and my building was in the community, what was called the community management program. We went in 1985. We came out in 2000, and we bought our building in 2002. The conditions of us owning our building as a HDFC was that we had to have a monitor. We had to this day, this is 40 years later, there are restrictions on how long you can sublease, on who you can sell to, how much you can sell for. We have a bank that manages our sales. They want to know who we're selling to. So what I'm hearing so far sounds like a project that's been going on for several decades that's allowed people to buy their homes and take care of their properties as an HDFC. And I don't know if there's something different about your building. I don't know if, HPD, and Christina was saying, speaking to the elected official, I'm just saying that I haven't heard anything alarming yet based on my own HDFC experience. And, I'm grateful that we have the chance to own our building. We don't have like, a slumlord or, we own our building. So anyway, I just wanted to, before we raise the alarms, I just wanted to understand how this is different than the programs that HPD has been offering for, the last 40 years. And again, I'm not here to advocate for HPD at all. I've had many a battle with my building and HPD, but I would just urge us to learn how this is different than what's already happening. So that's just my 2 cents to add on.
Sure. Don, you said what year was it that you came through the program?
We started in 1985. We could come out in 2000. But we finalized our purchase in 2002.
Right. So I mean, it is very complicated, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm talking really primarily from my building's experience and a few
Right,
people who've spoken
right.
to. HPD, depending on when you came through and where they were, HPD has sort of learned through this program as it's gone. In the beginning, a lot of times it was, we don't want this building on our records, but there's a tenant association, we'll give you training, you take it over. And they set up the terms differently depending on where you were, what value they had for the building, frankly, what administration was in power. So it varies. Some buildings, like mine, were the only restrictions were it's written in the deed, you're permanently affordable housing, which is again fine. You'll always have income tax or income requirements. You get the slight tax abatement for a set amount of time. And then it mandated that we had to have a flip tax on any sales, right, of 50-50. But that's all the city did in my building. Now, as property values have gone through the city and things have changed, particularly under Bloomberg, HPD started doing, and yeah, this was their right to do it because every building had the right to handle their building as they wanted to. HPD started offering different contracts, and they got a little bit more about, we want to have more control over these. So some buildings have terms that this is now kind of the standard regulatory agreement that HPD has been putting out there for a while. There's still a certain segment of HDFCs that have never had to operate kind of under that type of control and don't necessarily wish to have to go under that now. Of course, the answer is that just pay more taxes, which, okay.
Sure.
We have to.
Well, I just brought up that example, and thank you for giving all that extra information. I just brought up the example to say that we have to be careful painting all the HDFCs in the neighborhood with a broad swath. I think some HDFCs, like you said, are okay with the extra layer of monitoring and, because of all the benefits. I don't see anything wrong with HPD making sure that we don't sell the apartment to someone who then turns it into an Airbnb, or we don't sell it to someone who then turns it into a business. But again, say that again.
You technically can't do that now anyway. I mean, all of these.
I don't hear. I'm not hearing difference between what my. I haven't experienced that there's a tightening of the reins with HPD. So that's why I was confused what you were saying was happening during de Blasio, when this is something that's, been this way for a while. So if we're writing a letter of support that your building doesn't have to do what my building had to do because your building is different, then, I think more details would be helpful.
I agree. I mean, I definitely am streamlining our building. There are other buildings out there with the similar concerns, but every HDFC can have a completely different operating agreement, and they might be fine with their relationship with how the city works. A lot of the stuff that HPD was presenting under de Blasio, we already do. Like, it's already in the written law that it has to be your primary residence. So it's a lot of new bureaucracy that's layered over what we're already mandated to do and what we're already executing on. Other buildings that have different timelines have different agreements with HPD, and they might be perfectly happy with that. So that's 100% correct.
Thank you, Dawn. So it sounds like this is a topic, HDFCs is such a specialized, but such a vital part of the housing stock. And I don't think we're gonna come up with any decisions to support or not support today. I think that this committee needs to do a deeper dive in terms of HDFC and understanding, the restrictions or the guidelines, should I say. And so, if anybody has a question specific to Ginger, right, we've heard a little bit about what Ginger has to say. She's given us something to look at. This can be a guideline for us to read and get a sense of what your needs are. Getting a sense of what most of the HDFCs are under, and seeing how they can either meld or how we can differentiate the different needs, and if there are different levels in terms of these HDFCs do this way, have done it this amount of time, these HDFCs have done this for this amount of time. Is there a reason that these may have to change when the city has recognized that we're running in good stead? So
Right. Yeah, if somebody wanted to stay, was happy with their agreement, like, great, but there's no option for the city to come in and say, you know what, let's do a 1 year, let's do an audit every year of your books. And if you pass, you don't have to go through this. Right, there's no kind of middle ground in it.
okay, so if everyone, unless there's a different opinion, I think that we will have a lot of questions, but we have the beginnings here, right? If there's anything that you would like to submit in terms of us understanding more of how your building operates, and then a sample agreement, if you'd like us to look at, just so we have a more deeper sense as we read this and come up with different options. And of course, we have Dawn Sanders and others on this committee who can also talk about their experience which could help flesh things out a little bit further, especially in light of the fact that you mentioned that this is sunsetting in 2029.
Right.
And I'm in 2026, but that doesn't mean we should wait till the last minute. We definitely should do our homework. So is there any agreement or disagreement to what I've just been babbling about? With all due respect, I just, I haven't had enough coffee today, so are we okay with that?
Yes.
Maybe doing some homework. Chair, is there anything you'd like to add in terms of us doing some more homework on this and getting more information?
No, I think we could treat this like, the other one letter was going in, right? We can look into it, and then we could even take that letter and kind of put it in the way we would support it. I mean, I don't see anything about this one that would be particularly challenging for us to support, but, we'll do our homework and we'll go from there. I think in September, we can have a better handle on this.
Is there anything you would like to add before you let you go?
No, thank you for your time, and thank you, Don, for giving me the broader perspective, because I was kind of head down on my building, and I want to be fair.
And thank you for coming and giving us such a positive update. I'm really excited. Yes,
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good night, Don.
Good night.
Right.
And with that, thank you, welcome. I love you, Bells. Okay. With that, we're going to move to the agendas for the district budget consultation by the relevant agencies. Now, I don't know if anyone here has gone back to revisit what we put in the statement of district needs and what was sent back to us. Anyway, so I did print out some stuff, but I'll be honest with you as well. I need to review more in depth, and I'm just looking for it because I just put it all in here. So. Okay. These here which I can make copies of, was the housing, this was what we submitted. The housing, economic development and land use, right? These was the summary of our request across the board for the board. One step, right? Okay, so so everything is here, so I'm going to make sure that you all get a copy of this to take with you today. Right? This was from the tracker. Okay, and this was what was sent to us from Sage. Right? Now, I'm not sure if you all gonna look at it, but I will. Right? If we are committed to working on and doing an agenda now, or questions on these things, then I think that we will start putting something together. Well, it's, we're going to have the budget consultations over the summer. We are tasked by our chair to actually engage, right? And ask the questions that we need to ask based on what we requested. We can ask some questions now, I can read them. And we can try to come up with formulated questions now based on what they responded to our asks. But there should be initial general questions that we always ask, right? Like, we should always ask when they don't fund this, why not, right? Why was this not, I'm just speaking out loud, right? But, we took the time to put together what we felt we needed. And they have responded, and it's because they're adding more meat to their responses, right? But I would think, well, one of the general questions we would ask, right, is if they're not funding it, and they're not clear why they're not funding it, why not? Can they point to another time within this district, or if it's just, put aside, or is it just that there's no money? Is it gonna be funded in a later year? Those kind of things I think would go, an initial question for anything that is.
I think another question could be, what do we need to do to submit to get that funding, right? Or, what would it take to get funding for, whatever project that we're asking for? If there is money available, because if there's no money available, then that's why we're not getting it. But if there is money available, how can we get that money if we are denied on the first go round?
So should I read, are we going to try to come up with that today? Because we need to have something for the summer, or is this something that I'm gonna be working on my own? Which, if I need to, I don't mind, and getting your, feedback, but I'm just saying. Yes, sir.
So does everybody know what district consultation is?
What is that, district consultation?
Yeah.
Yes.
No?
Go over that.
Sure, but if you know already, I'm not gonna say it, but if you don't, then
I'm not sure.
Say,
Okay, so part of the statement of needs and budget requests process, community boards have, 2 sets of consultations with city agencies to discuss what the agency's priorities are, what the community board's priorities are, and taking that information to refine the request the community board's gonna submit in the fall, right? So that we're not finding ourselves in the position in September and October of just picking ideas out of the air, right? Those ideas never work. Never. It's 100% fail rate. You make something up out of thin air, it falls flat on the agencies, it lives in our statement of district needs forever, and you continue to be frustrated year after year because it was a silly request. Versus you have your consultation. So there's 2 sets, like I said. The largest set is what are called borough budget consultations, and that's where the district managers for each borough meet with the agencies and submit a list of questions in advance. And have these conversations with each of the agencies to understand the agency's priorities for the borough. At those consultations, I don't have the opportunity to ask about something specific to 116th Street because it's borough. But we then have, prior to that, the opportunity to schedule district budget consultations with the same agencies in the same format. We submit a list of questions, both follow-up clarifying questions to requests that we, have in the hopper from last year. And then also more general questions about what's going on with the agency, what its priorities are, and what if any overlap or opportunity there is for other ideas that we may have. I'm like, do you guys do this? If so, can you submit a request that looks like this with this line that in place? So the exercise this evening, or the exercise before you this evening, that I need I need all the committee's questions by the 11th, by next Thursday, so that I can submit them with the invitations that are going out to the agencies. If committees do not have questions for all the agencies under their purview, that's fine. But if you do, let's have them in advance so that I can submit them with the invitation. Because it's been my experience that when you just send the invitation for the consultations, this is a reality of living in a community board, working at a community board. Nobody knows what a community board is. So if I send an email, hey, come have a consultation with the community board, they're gonna play dumb. And what's a community board? What's a district consultation? So I don't wanna go through all that. I wanna just send them the invitation, such and such, I work here, here's our questions for your agencies, organized by, topic. So that's the exercise. It's not anything out of this world. It's not anything you have to do. But if we submit questions and the agencies are responsive, and the times that they have been, that I have found the answers very clarifying. It does help to have that in September when you're then reconvening to start prepping your submissions. You can then compare the answers you've got to like what you're still thinking about. Like, okay, well, DOT said, they'll do blah 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 blah. So then we don't need this one anymore. So you can scratch that one off your list. Or they're not doing this, you can add it to your list, or you can refine what's on your list, etc. Right? So the point is to provide you with the best information so that you can submit the most informed request in the hope that you have success in having those requests fulfilled. Versus, like I said, throwing stuff up in the air, which we do most of the time. That's why when you then read your responses in January, you're frustrated because we send silly stuff, so we get some answers. So that's the exercise. So you can do it tonight and add to my collection of gray hair, or you can send the questions to Nilsa. Nilsa can make them all pretty and send them to me, and then I'll send them with the invitation.
Okay, so I have a.
Yes, ma'am.
Now for you.
Oh, okay.
Nilsa, can you make us now?
Yes, I'm gonna make you copies of this, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually go into the register and look specifically for ours to highlight the page so that you have them, so that's what we're gonna concentrate on. But I'm gonna leave this, because I always make a copy, stuff. Does that make sense?
Then can you give us like 5 minutes to just kind of run through it? So
Yes.
we can.
Yes, I'm gonna give you, this is everything for the whole community. This is the stuff that I pulled out from what we did.
Yes.
I have to go back in here to look for the pages of the stuff they sent back. That's it.
No, true.
Can you guys hear?
Yes, we can. We're not saying anything, they're making copies.
Oh, I'm so
Dave's
sorry.
gonna sing a song.
No, I made rap.
I saw it, David talking, but I couldn't hear anything, so I wasn't
Oh,
sure.
you're just whispering to
Sorry.
me.
He
We
was
were
singing?
changing the lottery numbers.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
The next housing development. We need senior housing coming up. Seems close. But isn't it showing up there?
It's going up for that. The whole point is to have them matched, to get all the angles. Okay. Oh, just the one works fine, but we got the second one, so it's better. So somebody must have unplugged it or something. So when they, I'll leave it.
No, I'm not so
Going. So when we started, I mean, was it, not took the fault for that.
So that's why we don't have those extra angles.
Yeah, it's just this one
Kind
around.
of straight. I know.
Pretty great.
Okay, so. I wanna go ahead this. I'm going to leave on my liaison. These. The stars, I don't know if I'm. Maybe just because I think we have to put one. Cause then I'll give them a copy of this, cause then I want you
Not
to.
that one, you guys only do expense, right? Not this
So I don't have to worry about capital. But it's all.
You know, it's like something.
So for you, your only expense for a nice job
I'm
and.
looking here,
And VHS.
I wanna make sure so they know what they're reviewing.
Yeah.
They're gonna be more.
So let's get, so just point that out, that it's those meetings, but only expense for.
Okay,
Yeah.
right, but do I give them this so they read them?
Yeah, that's capital.
Alright, so. Everybody got this in their email from Sage, yeah. This is the register for the community board budget requests, okay? When you review this, right, and I have to look more carefully, we're only reviewing according to Angel's explanation to me, expense. Okay, so on your agenda, you will see there's the Department of Homeless Services, DHS, Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, expense, and Housing Authority, NYCHA. Those are the ones that we're gonna concentrate our questions based on what our ask was in the expense submission. So I'm going to send everyone an email just with the expense asks. For instance, catalog all existing vacant lots and vacant residential properties. Provide, expand or enhance rental subsidy programs. provide, expand, or enhance programs for housing inspections to correct code violations. I have to highlight my copy. Other expense budget for HPD, provide, expand, or enhance community outreach on HPD programs and services, and other expense budget request page. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look for that within this report. I'm gonna highlight, I'll pull out the report and just send you that. It will be the expense. You'll have, it won't be the one that says C. It will be the one that ends in E. So you're gonna get something like, and I'm gonna let them jump in, because I feel like I'm doing a muddle while I'm so.
No, you're not. I wasn't gonna get to the technical part.
No, but, so whatever I send you, it's gonna be a tracking code. And that tracking code will have a number. At the end of the number, the ones we're gonna worry about are the ones that ends in the letter E for expense, okay? We're not gonna worry about the capital. We're gonna comment on expense. Yes? Would you like to just jump in, Mr. Chair Rita?
Thank you. Yeah, so to make it even like simpler and maybe more interesting, you don't have to look at the requests you made so technically, right? You can kind of frame them in more general questions. Imagine you were having a conversation with these agencies and you made a request and you weren't really happy with what they did, or just general, like, so you're not like, did you fund this? But you identified the issue with why we asked for that funding in the first place, and then just ask them a question, right? So I think we had talked about like childhood homelessness. You just ask them for those statistics, right? How many homeless children have you identified in East Harlem? You know, how many have now been transitioned into permanent housing? What programs are available? How much funding? You know, things like that. You know, so you kind of can just ask them general questions that kind of touch on what we've asked for. You know, take like the ANCP, right? What's the plan there? What are next steps? You know, because we've heard right there in the pipeline, and that's all we've heard. And so just be general questions like that. Like I'd approach the questions from a very layman's term. I have to give you like direct answers. It doesn't have to be like a budget request questions. It could just be general questions about the state of things going on based off of what we've asked for. It might be a good way to approach it. And then once you get them in here, you can. Or more.
We get them for.
And that's the,
You can get one.
I'll add this about the consultation I had once it's stated. It's not like really, it's really a collaborative effort to look at things, to get a better understanding of why some decisions were made around some of the things coming, like, you know, right now, I'd like to get a better understanding like with UIC with some of the things. Again, when decisions are made, so I think it's actually a good dialogue to have, and it really is, it becomes more personal than impersonal as we get these papers back, like a standard kind of language or, you know, response. And sometimes it really helps to see things differently, and sometimes we may not see it the way it actually is, and that's also pointed out to us as well. So I look at it more like a collaborative and building relationship. And then when people have come back to our meetings, and that woman, I think, Michelle from DOE, they're more inclined to be supportive to your process. And that's just what I found. And do Margaret.
Do you believe that they become more transparent on what their planning or?
Well, you know, I think certain agencies are going to be more or less transparent just based on who they are, right? And the new HPD is initially, they look for every hour, right? But again, I think, getting things done is always getting down and developing a relationship with somebody. Finding maybe what that thing is to get them to open to you, because it's real easy to close them down and say, "That's fine, I can't say anything," right? Because just the way you responded, I sit here quiet and give you the non-answer. And that's why you really want to build these relationships, you know? And I'll say this, you know, we really worked hard on some of these things in youth and education over the years, and they finally happening. And it's, you know how it's happening? Because the relationship we developed with the DOE staff that kept moving up the line.
And so I got the directives for the borough and the directives for the district into the buildings. It took years, don't get me wrong. This has been on, I think we had Hernandez present here 3 years ago on it. Well, good even been during COVID. So we were still online all the time.
I know, so you're online,
So,
no, what do you mean? I think that was very helpful. I think this isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, you can ask tough questions, to get as much info as you can. It's just, like, we're not gonna play a game of, what? What do you mean?
you understand?
No, help me understand.
No, that's what we're meaning to sell.
Yeah, we're not playing a game of gotcha, right? Like,
Right.
we're not here to get, like, and I'm the first one that will get upset, so I'm trying to speak for myself more than anything. You know, like, ask the questions, and, you know, through the process, I think that David's saying, we'll start to find out, like, there is a time, I think, to get frustrated. It might not be right away, and it might not be with everybody. You know, you'll ask the questions, and then if they can't give you information, you ask them why, do you not have it, is there a reason? What can you give us? You know, I think David's right. This is the time to start the year off on a positive note. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Ask good questions. If you don't like the answer, I don't think we should get offended right away. Try to get more clarity on why we can't get that answer. And then David's right. You know, you can end up making great relationships and asking the right questions. And there might be then examples of times where then we do have to, push back, right? Like if HPD, for example, is going to continue with ANCP and all that, sit down, just as an example, that one has been particularly frustrating. But then you have one, then you try to have a nice conversation about one of them with them, and then you can get a little bit tougher on another, because, I think there will be situations where, we are tired of hearing this.
and sometimes the people come in the meeting after what's making those
It's
decisions.
usually those people, that's why they send them. They can go back, it's strategy, but
Right.
no. They don't want it, they're gonna have to go speak to someone, so we know that's how it works with most.
If I may, the budget consultations are a budget conversation. If we wanna get into like, is this agency and that's, wanna get into like attacking people, that's not this meeting. This is not a committee meeting. This is not being chaired by y'all, it's being chaired by me. It's a conversation, a dry conversation about numbers and priorities. That's what we're focused. And it's, like David was saying, it has been, when we've been, fortunate, very productive and very successful. Like, we have a list of requests from the Youth Education Committee and the Parks Committee, for example, that have just been getting ticked off. Right, because through the conversations with our contacts at the Parks Department and the folks at DOE, et cetera, we've been able to get on the same page, right? Like we tweak the request this way a little bit, or forward, focus in a different direction, and we've just been knocking stuff off, playgrounds, bathrooms, security doors, parks and stuff, and like they're coming off the list. Like if you look, some committees have been successful, some committees haven't. So that's not to say the committees that haven't can't be, they certainly can, but it depends a lot on how much work you're putting into it and how much effort you're putting into it and how how engaged you remain with the whole conversation. Like you have the consultation, you get some answers, you consider it, and then you let that inform your requests in the fall. Or you could not do that, and then you come back in January, why didn't we get it? I'm like, well, you didn't get it because you didn't do the thing, right? So like these are a positive thing, and I encourage you again. So if you are interested, please prep all your questions and have them ready by next Thursday, so we can handle it. If you're not, that's okay. We'll move on to the other way. That's one less meeting.
Question. The consultation is held where?
Right here.
Oh. Oh,
They
okay.
come here, they did it on the Zoom like sometimes.
Yeah.
It's live.
So they'll either be here or be on Zoom, and it's gonna be with me, the chair of the budget committee, the chair of the board, and the chair of the committee that represents. We're not gonna have the entire committee coming in the whole body. That's unnecessary. So like, those that can make it, those that can't make it, interesting, do whatever. Yeah, it's the key. So like, do it for people. And what we asked them to do in the invitation is to send us their budget report. Not like their liaisons that typically attend the meetings, because in fairness to those liaisons, their responsibility is to carry information back and forth. They aren't really, in the room when budget decisions are being made. So they may or may not know. It's kind of a difficult position to put them in, so we insist on getting the budget people. If you have the budget person in the room, like, at the boroughs, we get the HPD budget guy, and he's fantastic. Like, we eliminate all kinds of silly questions, because he's like, we don't do that, we don't do that, we do this, we don't do that. Down the list. It's helpful. If you get a liaison, again, like, they're trying their best, but it isn't really their role. Like, I know a bunch of stuff, but I'm not an engineer, like, we need to get engineer. So that's what we invite them. If we can get them, then we proceed with it. So to answer your question, they're at this table or online, depends on how. Since done remote, it's hard to get people to show up to meetings, in person, but we try.
Christina?
Okay, I might be a little off topic. I just found a pending request, right? Can I highlight these ones that belong to us so that I can find them easily on this chart?
I mean, yeah, that's
pending
what I did
requests,
for youth education, I
right,
highlighted
but I
them
don't,
in
I don't
yellow.
wanna highlight if it's gonna
Oh,
affect everybody
Oh,
else.
no, I'm not maintaining this, I don't wanna answer that and give you the wrong answer, that's Sage's thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
cause it would just make my life a little bit
Make-
easier that I can
something
open
better.
right
It doesn't
here.
have the committees.
It does, but they're not like together, so you got two
You
houses,
can
you got.
sort by
I tried that too.
right now.
Isn't that what?
Is this the
Try
same?
it and see if that comes out like this.
Oh, I can't.
No, that's why, try to see if it comes out like this. So for example, while you're doing that, I'm gonna read one request. I'm gonna read all of them, right? So this one is, Sunita Thomas, 05, it was on page 16, 05-311, whatever. And that's in E. And the request was listed as other expense budget request for HPD. The explanation was provide funding for additional vouchers for seniors, returning veterans, and their families. The responsible agency was HPD. Their explanation was that OMB supports the agency position as follows, but it cannot accommodate. Right, so right there, whatever the ask was, they said, and then they explained that while the agency supports additional vouchers for households in need of rental assistance, Section 8 is a federal resource with limited availability and funding. Now, doesn't necessarily mention Section 8 there, right? But we may wanna ask a question, okay, based on the budget and the new mayor and maybe allocations or categories that have been expanded, is there a thought for city, I know we have city FEPs and things like that, but something to supplement on the federal level. We have questions on street, we have questions on beach. So those are if we're asking budget type questions, based on the explanation, we can ask, we would really like to see this. Is there another program that we may not be aware of that are funded under a different category that might be able to support seniors and veterans, their families, based on the new budget? Or is there something in the works for Mayor Manzami? Did the block by block? I don't know if everyone read what Angel said or at least glanced at it. So Mayor Manzami has a lot of housing he'd like to get, and he has an initiative. Well, how do you help support people to get in there if there's just a finite number of vouchers? Like, is there some other thought by his administration to help support where there's lack? Like, this may be a response for now, but it may be a different response a year from now. Does that make sense? And then now you can ask Angel, he explains the stuff a whole lot better than I do, but anyway. So I'm going to send everyone, I found these here on page 16 on the PDF that Angel sent. On page 16, we have expense categories, we also have it on page 15. Starts with page 15, provide, expand, and enhance grant subsidy programs. That's something for us to look at. And then on the subsequent page, there is the other, at least 4, and I will look to see if we have any more, so that we can also opine on. So what I can do is make a copy of this now, you can take it with you to start.
And the one she just asked about. is
Yeah,
what?
that's that list there, but you're not gonna opine on the C, the capital, we're gonna ask questions on the expense. So I'm gonna go make a copy. Kyoka? Kyoka?
I'm here.
Kyoka has a question.
What's up?
What's up, Kyoka? Your hand is up.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to put my hand up. I'm sorry.
You just wanted for me to say hello to you especially. Hey, Kyoka, how you
Hi,
doing?
I'm sorry, guys.
All right, I'm gonna take a minute. Please talk amongst yourselves. If there's any questions regarding the consultation, please ask Angel so you can get a better sense, so as you're forming questions, and I'm gonna make you a copy of this.
Following or are we confused?
For the consultation, we only concentrating on expenses only, or?
For HPD, only expense. And from this committee,
Okay,
and then the capital for HPD will be done at land use.
say that again?
At the land use committee.
Oh, okay.
But then for housing, for NYCHA and for DHS, to expense that capital. Expensive capital for housing and expense for DHS. DHS will include capital. Not really. No, they're not building.
The program for the block.
That's mayor's housing plan.
Oh, okay.
Angel,
Yeah,
this page says here is here. What?
I don't know. I don't say that.
Those are the district needs, requests. Like,
These are the district.
That's so what I think, right, those are the ones that, yeah, they should have been in the budget tracker, that's the other ones. That's only a document that's saved. Right, it's in the.
What?
Think where it was.
I know what we're looking for.
Alright. So are we clear? Angel explained about the budget consultations. Adele said we can ask general questions if we want, but Angel reiterated that this is really a budget conversation, so we can do both. Nothing, says we can't be asking the questions in a way that gathers information, but then we ask a little bit more pointed based on our request. Christina, I'll help you find. So are we clear? Any questions that you have or you would like to have based on that? And I'll review the document to see what else, if there's any other expense ones I've missed. We have a deadline of Thursday to get it back.
Sooner.
Right, no, right, so I'm saying Angel has a deadline of Thursday, right? So I would like it maybe by Tuesday, if possible, because then I'll read what you are saying and I'll try to put it, the questions will be very clear, so I'll try to put it at least on one list for Angel, based on the ask and then the questions underneath the ask. Any questions that are the same or repetitive, we'll merge them together so everyone is covered. And then we'll submit it to Angel, and then Angel, based on his experience, if it seems like the ask is not clear, he'll let us know, and if there's something that we should have maybe asked that we didn't, I'm sure in the conversation, he'll ask. Is that clear for everyone?
Yes.
All right. Because we all look so cool. All right, with that, we're gonna keep this meeting moving along, one of the shortest ones I think we've had. Let me find my agenda because I lost. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna go now to, if there's no questions.
Skip that, twice by mistake, it's actually.
Which one?
No, I have to. Ignore that one.
Ignore it, this is
Yeah,
on
that's- that's-
okay. So we're looking to, as we talked in last month's meeting, we're looking to try to get aligned, right? I'll use the word aligned, it may not be the most appropriate word, but we're trying to get more savvy about what is being proposed legislatively. In terms of things that could be within our committee scope. And last month, we discussed two bills, right, that were proposed. And for some reason, we couldn't come to a consensus at that time. Now, the bill, just to bring it back as old business, and then we have some, again, this time, right, this was the Day 51 extension. But the bill that I'm talking about, and we have the same bills here as old business, we talked about some of these, and then the new business bills we also discussed, which was A 4957 authorizes the New York City Council, oversees the activities of the New York City Housing Authority. Do we remember that?
No, I do not.
Okay, well, we talked about the city council putting a proposal to, because of NYCHA and its expenses and its budgets and the condition of NYCHA, just having, this was last month's.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then we have this month's agenda.
Oh,
So none of us remember where we talked about how we were gonna come back and we were gonna discuss.
I mean, that's my issue, and I said this last month. When I put these here, and the whole reason was, oh, we're not ready, because we're gonna, I don't think you were here, Beverly, but we were gonna talk about it and think about it and send things in. And I said, please, let's not come back here a month from now, when the whole request to not take a position was to have a month to do something. And now, I kind of said this would happen, we'd be sitting here a month from then, in the same position we were a month ago. So that's frustrating. And if you guys don't wanna do that here, I'm not trying to be, I will take these things and put them in executive. And we'll vote for them there. Because these are things we should be doing. And I don't wanna do that, but we had a month, it doesn't take, I, on my own, and I'm not just saying, did 4 letters last month for different committees. Just asking a group of people to look at 2 over a month. 2. You know, and the idea is to build from this, is to start writing our own stuff and sending it in. This isn't even the end game. But it's frustrating because I think you guys are all highly capable of it. Just a question of, are we putting in the time to do it? I don't think we are. That's the frustrating part. You know, if you came back and I liked the idea of this and you guys all said no, and you had some reason why, that would be great. But to have no conversation after we asked for a month to do this is frustrating.
So there was another resolution. And it builds on, it's the same thing regarding NYCHA. The resolutions call upon the New York State legislature and governor to provide their share of the additional $3 billion annually that must be reinvested into NYCHA in order to address capital needs. We didn't take position on that either. Now, understand that the assembly bill and the resolution is about housing that we have one of the largest concentrations of natural. And in our, I'm sorry, my allergies. And in our asks, we're constantly talking about NYCHA. And we're talking about sidewalk repair, and we're talking about mold, and we're talking about different things that NYCHA, that the portfolio of NYCHA experiences because of neglect on our federal government that stopped investing in the federal, and so it just, NYCHA keeps limping along. And then the fact of the matter is that sometimes NYCHA gets repairs done at inflated prices. And depending on who gets the bid to do it, you spend more money on labor than you actually spend on outcomes, right? And so these two bills that we discussed last month, well, the assembly bill and the resolution, was to support either some type of oversight over NYCHA, right? Authorizes the city council to oversee the activities of the New York City Housing Authority. Seems straightforward, but the bill itself gives you more information. Doesn't sound like anybody went back to that. But I want you to think about what it's saying, right? Overseeing the activities of the New York City Housing Authority. We had a meeting here with New York City Housing Authority leadership. Grateful that they came. But if we have questions based on operations, and I know that they've been cut with a lot of money, who do we go to but NYCHA, right? So is there a need for an extra layer, right? I'll call you in a minute, Christina. Is there a need for an extra layer so that we understand what's happening with NYCHA? And if we agree on that, then we can vote on it, right? If you want to take a minute or 2 minutes to read, it was part of the agenda in May. We had handouts here. If you don't want to take a vote again tonight, then we won't do so. We won't do it, right? If you feel that. But somewhere along the line, we all have to take responsibility for the fact that we're here to speak for our community. I didn't come, and in full disclosure, I didn't come as prepared as I needed to be, in terms of tonight's agenda, but I'm familiar with it. And at the very least, everyone at this table needs to become familiar with what we're going to at least discuss. The second bill, the second resolution, was the state legislature going to provide their share of the additional $3 billion annually that must be reinvested into NYCHA in order to address capital needs. That seems very straightforward to me because NYCHA has a deficit, $3 billion to help. Was it $3 billion? Yeah, $3 billion could help. And there's an ask potentially to tell them, put your money there instead of other places that don't help this community or won't have the ability to at least help some of our portfolio. That's what we discussed last month. If we need another month, or if we need whatever we need to do, but we need to start showing we're taking this serious, right? I grew up in NYCHA. I grew up in Johnson and Lee. And then there were issues with Lehman. Johnson was better, believe it or not. But Lehman had issues, structural issues. And I remember the leaks and the dust. And I remember how sometimes the lighting would go off and the elevators didn't work right and you know, just the locks that didn't close. So we're going through in 2026 what we went through in the 70s, the 80s. But just as at an accelerated rate with less money, because at that time at least there was money invested. There were crooks who took, you know, who monitored that money, but there was more money invested in the 70s and 80s than there are now. If you want to take a position, you can do so.
Also, but I would advise not to, and you guys can do what you want, because if the position a month ago was we need a month to review it,
So they should be.
and then we're here a month later, we haven't done it, well, why would that have changed? Right, so now we don't need a month to review it, why? You know, there's no urgency here, I mean, well, maybe there is.
There's no urgency.
I will say this, I'm tempted to put these in executive, but I give the benefit of the doubt. But this is what I will say, if I don't see any questions or comments being sent to Nelson about this before executive, then I will put them on. And then you'll all have your chance to vote on it at full board. So if you guys want this to stay with you, then just show me and Nelson that you're participating in it. If not, then, you know, maybe this is not a good exercise, you know. Other committees sent letters, the electeds are gonna eventually respond to that, you know. I wrote a bill for the liquor licenses with the whole, you know, I'm not gonna get into it, but they're listening to that. So, you know, just, it's up to you guys, you do what you want, and then, you know, we'll see.
So,
For myself personally,
yes, would you like to take another month to review this and then understand a little bit the nuances of this?
Christina, thank you. So I kind of mulled over this a little bit, probably not as much as I should have, being a NYCHA resident, right? And I've been in NYCHA, I didn't grow up there, but I've been there for 4 years and I've seen the decline in it. Over the years, NYCHA has consistently mismanaged money over and over again. We've seen multiple heads change. We've had Shola Olatalia, we have the new girl now. We've had a couple of guys in there, and every time the money has been mismanaged. Is it good to have the city council oversee them? I don't know. But for me, it's like we keep doing more and more and more to support NYCHA, and they keep still not doing what they're supposed to do, and the residents are suffering for that, right? Is $3 billion gonna help us? Yes, possibly, but are they gonna mismanage that money again, right? So do we get an overseer? If so, I'm not so sure city council people are the ones to do it. I think NYCHA needs an independent auditor to go in, because when you're spending X amount of dollars way over retail to buy a screwdriver or a toilet bowl or whatever it is, somebody is mismanaging this money, right? And no one has ever been held accountable to it, right? So I think, yeah, there may need to be somebody to oversee them, but I just don't know if city council is the way to go.
So, based on that, I charge everyone in this committee to go and read what has been proposed. And make it, you know, when we print it out, make the notations on it. What is troubling to you? What you think might be better? So that we can have a discussion. Is that?
Chair.
You don't have to go and push my hand.
What happened?
I said, I want you to finish, don't push my hand goes up.
No, I'm just saying, right, because if it hasn't been read, see, I'm the type of person that, sometimes I just go sometimes by my gut. But I recognize that we all need to read this more carefully. I read it. I have my own notes, you know, this kind of stuff, but I charge you all to read it. You, today this is our meeting, probably for the end of this term. Unless something comes up in July, where we will have a meeting, but in September, this committee needs to be. Right, you will have 2 months to basically read this and make notations, because if we don't take a position, unless our chair decides to defer to executive, that doesn't mean that we can, even after executive, that we can opine. There are 2 other bills here, right? The J51 extension, right? Am I looking at the right thing? Yeah. So that's the 8178, if you look at your, right? That's the authorizing tax abatements for Senate or for alterations and improvement for multiple dwellings for purposes of preserving habitability and affordable housing. The 10549 is the assembly bill version of that extension. Right? Then there's the S8880. Enacts the Housing Development Fund Company Fairness, Preservation, and Affordability Act. Do we know what that is? So we are again charged to read that. So for the summer, unless our chair wishes to put it in executive, those bills, those legislative actions, we need to know, right? Even if we outline them for ourselves, so that we can have a discussion on what we would like to do. Yes?
May I just say something?
Yes.
I mean, at this point, we wouldn't get to them to September if we don't have another meeting. So if we want these things to go forward, either we have to take a position or we have to put it in executive. Because why would we wait 3 more months? But you know, this is not indicative of this committee. This happens on all the committees.
Right.
So, you know, it's been my frustration as a chair over the years. That's
No, we're sorry. I just wanted, like, my comment before about everybody being highly capable. You, Christina, you touched on the third part of this, right? Which is write our own, adopt theirs, or make suggestions. Right, so if you think oversight is needed, but maybe city council isn't right, then maybe what you guys would do, if you all agree to that, is, you know, because now we're trying to make relationships, we want to like blow up our elected spots, we don't like this, we would send a letter directly to them, complimentary about the idea of oversight, and then make this suggestion. And it might not go anywhere, but it tells them that we're reading their things, we're being thoughtful, we're making suggestions. And then that starts a dialogue, you know, and I'm not looking at a railroad, you guys put things through. But you know, so, because we have enough to do on executive, but yeah, I'll just leave it at that, but thank you to David.
Well, this is something new for us, right? We all have that visceral understanding of what happens in our community and in our homes and stuff. And so we come with that expertise. So now we just gotta like flip it a little bit and remember the legislative part of it, where you know, when people are trying to put something together and now we gotta add that like that other tool, right? Where we're gonna try to find the understanding and the time, right? Because we'll be ready to read it and try to formulate, at least having a discussion. So when someone comes, even if we don't have the position or we don't, for whatever reason, take a position, which we should, but if we don't, but at least we can have a discussion so that when other things come in front of us, we have a better understanding. And have a better discussion. Christine?
I have a question. because I don't feel like city council might be the best overseer. Should we, could we think about, recommending someone else or some other type of agency that might be able to oversee them, right? Without them taking like 2 billion of the 3 billion to do this kind of, because that's what happens. You get these third party contractors that come in and they take these huge salaries, which leaves us with less money. So, how do we go about finding or just thinking about someone else that can come in and do this kind of work without a huge paycheck or a huge pay?
Yes, I piggyback on what Christina said, once we get. What about the council of the tenant associations at these nature things? When people that would oversee or at least watch it to ask questions, because I mean, they're the soldiers on the ground.
No, I'm sorry, can I just, I know that, so lately, I'm sorry, but to your point, lately, every year now, we're supposed to be sitting, I'm sorry, TA president, are supposed to be sitting in budget meetings with the managers at the development. So they're supposed to explain to us the budget, what money is being spent, where it's being spent, and what's left over, if anything.
And that doesn't.
I had a meeting last year with our management company and it was totally confusing. So it wasn't something that I really understood what was happening. And the manager wasn't very adept at explaining it to me, right? So kind of figuring out when I'm supposed to get into another meeting with her to figure out so we could go over this together to figure out this budget thing, so.
So, you know, a thought that could be, right, Loretta?
You know, I just wanted to add to it. There was called the ICOP, which is the presidents of the different developments. And they get together. So they have made changes this new year. So I think they once again getting this ICOP together. And that might be something that could come through.
Right, so you're mentioning a lot of things, right? So we need to become better knowledgeable about what we our understanding. But within that structure, so let's say if the city council is putting a bill together that they would like to oversee that job, and you feel, right, that it's not. Thinking about what would be the best mechanism, you mentioned about having the tenant associations. Well, who has that expertise to understand budgets? And you mentioned them. Well, should the city council decide that that's a thing, what's their mechanism to ensure? Are they just having hearings to find out, to the night on the spot, to find out what they're spending? Or will they, based on whatever mechanisms they're thinking of doing, will they actually have an impact? Or is it just to appear that they have responsibility and that they are holding action accountable? So as you read the bills, right, I will, the chair will decide what he wants to do. But with that said, we still have to, regardless of whether executive decides to see it or not, we definitely can continue that conversation. Yes. Okay. Dawn?
Hey.
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 I can't
Hello?
see you, Dawn. Oh, and I can sort of halfway hear you. Okay.
Okay. No, oh.
I mean,
I have an unpopular thought about these bills. Did you hear me?
It's very choppy, Don.
Okay. All right. I was gonna say I have a lot of bills, but let me off better.
Sorry, Dawn, it's bad. Turn off your video, maybe just do audio. Yeah, maybe. Try now. You're muted there.
Is that any better?
Yeah.
Okay, so having, I guess, gone through the state, first of all, full disclosure, I work on the state side, right? And the state budget was just completed. I'm aware, and I don't know if everybody's aware, but the federal government, starting 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, started cutting a lot of our statewide programs. And this is an election year on the state side, right? So a lot of the things that the federal government cut, the state has filled in for. And I think that it's going to be soon time to put our foot down in terms of NYCHA, in terms of public housing, because a lot of the public housing throughout the country has already been razed. It's already been torn down. And we know that this federal government has an interest in shutting NYCHA down. I'm just wondering when our electeds are going to hold the federal government responsible for what they've pledged and what's been taken away little by little each year. So, for example, the farms, and this, I mean, again, I don't want to diverge too far, but we can't just look at East Harlem or New York City. All of these political issues and all of these budget issues are connected. The federal government took away all of the funding for farmers, right? So in other states, a lot of farms went out of business. People liquidated their farms. There was a huge crisis. In New York State, the governor put the money in, right? A lot of healthcare was cut, and the governor put a lot of that money back, right? So the state budget went down by 30 billion from last year was 297, I think. And I think, I'm not going to say whether or not that happened for political reasons, but at some point I believe that the federal government needs to be held to task for what they are supposed to be doing for NYCHA. And the more we let them just take away and we don't stand our ground and get back what's been promised, I think the worse off we are. So I have thoughts about that, not just because I work for the state, but because I've seen the demise of public housing over the last 25, 30 years. And this is something I studied, and I worked at NYCHA, and I worked everywhere you could imagine. And I don't think the city council is the right overseer. I've seen a lot of corruption in the city council when it comes to housing and who gets housing and who gets housing lotteries and all that. And I've seen enough of that to know that the city council is not going to be the right overseer. So I have a lot of thoughts on this. I don't like to just throw my thoughts out there, but I just want to drop those few pennies out there because I think we need to think about the entire state budget. We have to think about the entire country, what's happening in the country. And, fighting between the city and the state is not going to deal with the issue that nobody is willing to stand up to the federal government. So that's just my 2 cents.
Go on. Any questions? Okay, so we're tasked. So we're tasked, right?
Yeah.
So we're tasked to when we can to do these things and maybe highlight in your mind, like I'm always writing something. What's sticks out at you? So that we can have a discussion September. Again, if our chair should elect to move that to executive, that does not preclude any of us from knowing those bills or those resolutions and having a discussion. Because that's not gonna be the end of it, that support, because the way our legislatures are, sometimes they don't support things, or they do away with things that seem to make common sense. And so we still have to make our mark, right? We still have to have these discussions and come up with positions, based on what's happening around us. Make sense? Yes, Chair?
Yeah, I know.
So with that, is there any new business? The new business is for you, the same as the old business, which is to read what you were supposed to read and come up with questions and get on the applications, right? By Wednesday, if possible, Tuesday is best, because Wednesday I'll be in class, so that I can have any questions to Angel by Thursday. With that, we're gonna call the roll.
Ray Charles. Ray Charles. David Giordano.
Yeah.
Yes, my apologies, I didn't know. Yes.
We got you, Ray. Okay, Greg. David Jonathan.
President.
Okay, Sam.
Present.
Alonso Ramos. Alone. Dr. Sanders.
Here.
You. So.
Yeah.
And you Vivas Vasquez.
Here,
Then Vivas Vasquez.
aquí, here.
Thank you all for attending, thank you for your comments, and with that, I close the meeting at 8:09 PM. Have a good night.
Good night.